On Tech News Today, don't look now, but here come the net neutrality lawsuits. Plus, Google is trying to reinvent TV advertising, and Twitter rolls out new features that make it even more like Facebook. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com. It's time for Twit's annual audience survey, and we want to hear from you. Please visit twit.tv/survey and let us know what you think. It only takes a few minutes, and your anonymous feedback will help us make Twit even better. We thank you so much for your continued support. twit.tv/survey.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, March 24th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/TNT and entering promo code TNT. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 49 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 20% off image subscription packages on your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code TNT0315. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. My name's Mike Elgan, and joining me as co-anchor is After Nine's content czar, Joe Panettieri. What's going on, Joe?
Let's see what's going on. It is Tuesday, correct? Let's just confirm date and time.
I'm not certain of that, actually. We were talking a minute ago about how it feels like Thursday. You know, Newman from Seinfeld says Thursday doesn't have a feel. I disagree. Here at Twit headquarters, Thursday definitely has a feel. It's usually quieter and darker for some reason. Looking around the studio here, I think it might be Thursday, Joe.
Yeah, there seemed to be a darkness around Jason as he was prepping, so it might be Thursday.
I think that's his gloomy personality is what that is. Oh, well, what are you going to do? And sometimes that cloud over his head actually rains. It's the most astonishing sight. Well, Joe, why don't we jump right into the news? We've got all kinds of really interesting news today, including this top story. When the FCC approved net neutrality on February 26th, everyone knew the rules would be challenged by lawsuits. But not this soon. The FCC is already facing 2 suits. Brian Fung is a reporter for The Washington Post and joins us now. How's it going, Brian?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on. It's been a little while since you've been on the show. We missed you. So who is suing the FCC right at this point?
So we've got one trade group, U.S. Telecom. They're a group of major telecom companies such as AT&T, and then on the other side you've got not the other side, but you've also got a small broadband provider that's based in Texas called Alamo Broadband.
Brian, what are the suits at this point? Are they closely related, these 2 suits, or are they completely different types of suits?
Well, one suit was filed in Washington, D.C., at the D.C. Circuit. The other one was filed in New Orleans, the Fifth Circuit. Both of them take the FCC to court on the net neutrality rules, saying that that they apply unreasonable requirements on internet providers and are being challenged on those grounds. What's really interesting about them to note is that, as you said, these lawsuits came a little bit earlier than a lot of people were expecting. That's because they take advantage of kind of a technicality in how the rules were rolled out. The argument here is that even though the FCC's rules aren't official yet, they need to be published in the Federal Register. There is a part of them that operates on a different timeline. So a part known as the declaratory ruling is technically considered public and final when the FCC posted them to the website, its own website, fcc.gov. So by that logic, anyone who wants to challenge the rules has 10 days to do so, and the 10th day was technically on Sunday, but you bump that into the next business day, which was yesterday, and that's how you wind up with 2 early lawsuits.
What are people saying there in Washington, D.C.? Does anyone expect these lawsuits to succeed?
Well, I think, before you get to that question, you have to ask the sort of procedural question, whether or not, they'll be thrown out by the court on the grounds of this interesting legal argument about whether or not you can take advantage of this alternative timeline. But, as you said, everyone is sort of expecting that there will be a challenge to the rules. I think a lot of people that I've been talking to seem to think that the FCC has a strong case to make. Other people have said that 90% of what the FCC did will probably stand. It's the other 10% that will raise some questions. But at this point, it's hard to say. A lot of it depends on which court it winds up in and who hears the case.
Hey, Brian, any chance that we'll see additional lawsuits, and will they just continue to dribble out, or does at some point do they all get rolled up into one sort of quote-unquote class action lawsuit?
It won't be a class action as as we sort of typically understand it. But what generally happens here is that there will be a number of lawsuits filed, and then they'll be rolled into a lottery system. At which point the federal judiciary, the sort of administrative body that handles these matters in the court system, will assign one court to handle the case. So it used to be that you'd have multiple people racing to the courthouse trying to beat each other to get cases heard in the friendliest venue. And then in about the 80s, Congress decided that system wasn't working very well. As one person put it to me, you had multi-million-dollar, sometimes even billion-dollar cases being decided on who got to the courthouse first, down to the matter of 3 seconds or less. So the system obviously wasn't working out very well, and Congress decided, we're going to implement a lottery system and have just one easy way to figure out where the cases should be heard.
Interesting. Brian Fung is at thewashingtonpost.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Brian_Fung. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brian.
My pleasure.
We got some more news for you coming up in just a sec, but first, let's talk about sleeping. Sleeping is very important, and if you have a good mattress, you can have a fantastic night's sleep. And of course, one of our sponsors today is Casper. Casper is the friendly mattress because it's made with two technologies, latex and memory foam, and I think that's one of the big secrets about why Casper mattresses are so incredibly comfortable. They're both firm and soft at the same time, so you can get a fantastic night's sleep. You'll get just the right sink and bounce for sleeping really, really well. And of course, you think, well, how am I going to get a mattress to my house? Well, it comes by mail. You get this box, and when you open it up, this mattress sort of breathes life into itself and becomes this big, firm mattress of whatever size you ordered. And it's just really a fantastic system for delivering mattresses, especially since the delivery is free. And it's painless to return as well with a 100-day period. If you're going to normally, the normal way, the old-fashioned way to shop for a mattress is you go to the mattress store and, you lie down and see how it feels, and you can't tell. There's no way that you can tell what it's like to sleep on a mattress by laying there in a showroom on a bare mattress. There's just no way to tell at all. So the only way to tell is to sleep, and I don't recommend sleeping at the store. Casper will give you 100 days to sleep on a Casper mattress, and then you'll know for sure how comfortable these Casper mattresses are. To get a Casper mattress, which is $500 for a twin and $950 for a king size, compared to industry averages, that's a really amazing price. And you can save an additional $50 as one of our audience members by going to casper.com/TNT and entering the promo code TNT. That's casper.com/TNT and enter promo code TNT. You're going to love this mattress, and you're going to get a great night's sleep, and you really deserve it. You really owe it to yourself to sleep well, because then you're ready to face the day and deal with whatever comes along. So highly recommended, Casper mattresses. Google is trying to reinvent TV advertising and make it look a lot more like internet advertising. And they're doing it in the original Google Fiber location, which is Kansas City. Dante D'Orazio is a reporter for The Verge and joins us now. Welcome to you, Dante.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Now, what is Google's new local advertising service like exactly?
So, those local ads that you see on TV of the silly guy giving his pitch for the local car dealership? Cable companies have long offered those ads. They sell them directly. Now, Google wants to make a more flexible system so that they can use information about who's watching the show, what time it is, where you live, et cetera, and they can swap those ads out on the fly. So it's not quite, you're not going to pop up ads on your TV, not quite yet, but this is something that's not nearly as static as the old local ads that we've seen.
Hey, Dante, do you think we're moving to a pay per impression model here where Google is actually tracking how many times an ad is served up and then maybe limiting how often that ad is served up based on viewership or based on the budget the advertiser has? Are we going to that pay per impression model?
Google hasn't made any announcement about that they let this news out on Friday with a really tiny under-the-radar blog post. But what is really exciting about the technology is that certainly could happen because they're able to track precisely how many times someone has watched or a household has watched an ad on their cable box. And so advertisers can tell Google, hey, I don't want them to see the ad more than 15 times. It's probably good at that point, or whatever it is, 5 times. And so they can say, it's part of the marketing budget. So we're not going to just buy that time slot for whatever it costs. It's not just 30 seconds cost X number of dollars. It's, hey, we trust you. Maybe it's going to be, hey, Google, we trust you to place these ads where they're relevant and when they're relevant. And it's going to be, it's not hard to imagine a pricing model that would align with that system.
Speaking of relevance, my understanding is that this will work on DVR'd programming as well. How do they do that?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, if you think about, I think a good example for this is if you've watched Hulu, that's TV shows and there are ads on Hulu. And when you watch a time-shifted program on Hulu, right, the day after it airs, there are ads, of course, and those ads aren't just like the ads that showed on, Fox the day before. They're new ads that are designed for Hulu. So, now we're going to take this to a cable box in someone's home. And, when you start watching a DVR program, DVR, how it works now is that you have a hard drive is just capturing the video that was broadcast live. This is a case where Google's saying, hey, those ads may not be so valuable. Maybe you're watching the show 2 weeks later and we don't want that ad in there anymore. Those ads are empty slots that are extremely flexible and fluid. And so Google can come in and say, hey, we're going to place this ad here in this particular time slot. So I'm watching the DVR program a week later. It's not going to be the same ad that I would have seen if I watched the show when it first broadcast live. And for that matter, going to back to what I said before, it's, if your friend's watching it on the other side of town, it also might be a different ad because they'll say, oh, well, this car dealership is closer to you. So, you're going to see a different ad. So the ads won't be so tied to exactly, oh, this ad shows 30 seconds when the commercial break starts and it's tied to this particular episode. It's much more, they could put them in on the fly. It's sort of like Google AdWords, right? Google's in charge of, hey, someone searched for a term. We think that this is when this ad's going to be most effective.
So Dante, in terms of the competitive landscape here, sort of a two-part question. Are any other cable companies testing this type of technology, or are the cable companies more dependent on the set-top box makers to reconfigure those endpoints to support this type of technology?
So the traditional cable system is based on a different model. So there are two things at play here. One is that we've heard, rumblings about targeted advertising on TV for a long time, right? I mean, cable boxes are getting more advanced, and we have the internet wire ads stuck in the past in terms of marketing it, targeting it directly to consumers. So there have been talks about this. There's a company, I believe in New Jersey, called NVIDIA Technologies. They are a third-party provider, and they work with Verizon, Comcast, a couple others, DirecTV, and they have this software that's in the cable boxes, and it's able to provide some information on who's watching the show. So, and then they can control the ads based on that. There hasn't been a lot of talk about that. I think part of it is that Google, Google's an ad company first, and Google's a big name, and everyone gets pretty excited or worried, depending on who you are, when Google starts talking about changing how ads are going to work. The other answer to your question is, there's another part of this, which is that how are they going to track who's watching a show, right? How do you buy an ad on TV? It's connected to how many people watch the show or how many people have watched the show in the past. And with this technology in the cable box for Google's system, they're going to be able to say, in theory, they should be able to say, oh, well, this guy watched the show and he changed the channel 15 seconds into the commercial break. And you have a lot of precise data on exactly who's watching it. And the TV ratings, of course, the industry uses are from Nielsen, which uses a very, very small subset. And then they use a lot of statistical analysis to try to determine how many people actually watch the Oscars. But, of course, they're not monitoring every cable box. So with this system, we could see a better feeling of actually who's watching the ad and who actually saw the ad, and not just 30,000 Nielsen homes happened to see the ad. It's a very different thing. So
now, my understanding is that Google Fiber cities are supposed to be some sort of example for the industry, kind of to pressure the industry to provide faster internet connectivity. It's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be Google getting into the ISP and TV advertising business, as far as I know. Now, is Google planning to possibly roll this sort of thing out beyond the Google Fiber cities, beyond the sort of ISP scenarios that it controls directly?
I mean, any answer there would be pure speculation at this point, but I think it's hard to imagine how exactly the system will play out. The way it works now, they plan on launching this in the next couple of weeks, according to a New York Times report in Kansas City. It requires hardware in the set-top box, and Google controls that set-top box. So that's a convenient setup for Google. Google sells the ads. They also sell the service. There's only a few other cities, like Austin, Texas, Charlotte, Raleigh, that currently have Google TV, Google Fiber. So we can see it going to those places without much difficulty. But other than that, is Google going to make some deal with Comcast or someone else to put their hardware in the boxes or handle it for them? That seems really far-fetched at this point. It's a complex industry. And for that to happen overnight, I don't think Google's going to control TV advertising. Just keep it in perspective. We're talking about local ads only. So this isn't the big Mercedes-Benz ad during the Super Bowl we're talking about. And so the only situation I can imagine where it'd be something at bigger scale is we've heard about Google doing a over-the-top internet TV service. So, with a system like that they're not stuck to having their cables in the ground, and they're not stuck as geographically limited. So, if we had a national rollout of some internet Google TV service, you could perhaps see some more control there.
It sounds pretty awesome. I mean, you can imagine a future where, people surf the internet looking for legal services, and then they turn on the TV and there's Better Call Saul ads, like custom delivered to their screens. That world is coming, and I guess it could be coming from Google directly. Dante D'Orazio is at TheVerge.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Dante D'Orazio. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dante.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Let us know what you think about Google's new advertising scheme. Send us email to tnt@twit.tv. Want to hear all about it. Really curious about whether this sounds like a boon or a bust, whether you want this kind of contextual advertising on TV or you don't. Let us know. Well, a new video service called Vessel launched today. The site is designed to help YouTube stars and video creators make more money, which is always a good thing. David Bloom is a tech editor for Deadline and joins us now. Welcome to you, David.
Glad to be here.
Now, how does Vessel work, and how much does it cost?
It's $2.99 a month, but if you sign up in the next 72 hours, it launched at midnight last night Pacific time. If you sign up in this first three days, you get a year free. So go ahead and sign up, check it out. They want to get people in the door. I'm actually playing with it right now in terms of the sign up process. It's pretty simple. but it has a lot of choices, 175 different video creators, including some very big names, not just YouTubers. I mean, we've got Time Inc., so that's Fortune and Sports Illustrated and people like that. It's A&E and Discovery and folks like that. It's TED Talks. It's Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers. Some of those are behind a paywall. Most of those are behind a paywall, not all of them. Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon's stuff, for instance, will be on the free side if you don't sign up in the next 3 days. But at $2.99 a month, it's still a pretty good deal.
So, David, just clarify for me, is basically Vessel trying to hijack content from YouTube and bring it over to the Vessel network going forward and then packaging it and charging for it in a different way?
Well, I talked to Jason Kilar a couple times, including yesterday, and Jason was the founding CEO of Hulu before he and his former Hulu CTO, Richard Tom, started Vessel with $75 million in venture capital backing, a pretty serious chunk of change. Their idea is up to now, YouTube has been the only distribution window for online video. We've seen what happened in the film business. They developed a whole series, a whole ladder of distribution windows. You have theatrical, and then you have it going to VOD, and then it goes to home entertainment, and then it goes to people like the HBOs and Stars of the world, and then it goes to broadcast, and then it, on and on and on and on. So they've got a very precise way of providing over time different levels of value and access to the film business. The same things happen in TV. And Jason's point, and I think it's a really valid one, is that this is needing to happen with online video, and Vessel and some other sites that are coming along doing other kinds of things are the first steps in creating multiple release windows for online video. So this is exclusive access for at least 72 hours to those 140 creators' content. And 135 creators' content, and then they can put it anywhere they want. They can put it on the free side of Vessel. They can put it onto YouTube. They can do all kinds of stuff. What we've had is YouTube with millions probably of creators, some of whom actually are making pretty good dollars, but depending completely on the revenue share that YouTube provides and anything that they can get out of their multi-channel network that may be representing them for higher ad rates, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really and there's some real limits in terms of what you can do in the YouTube universe right now. I mean, the CPMs, basically the money you get per impression, are pretty low on just a basic YouTube site. So this is an opportunity to bring much more money. They are paying their people some significant upfront money. I talked to people who were managers of some of these big names. They said it was like 6 to 8 times what they thought they could make off of YouTube. There were upsides and downsides about doing some of that, about your relationship with your audience, about being behind a paywall. Some of these guys did not go forward. It's a fascinating time, though, and if it helps bring new ways to make money and new economic models to the business, this is the time to do it.
Now, it seems to me that a lot of the target content creators would be YouTube stars. How is Google going to respond? What are Google's and YouTube's options for dealing with this kind of service where they're essentially trying to monetize, to a certain extent, YouTube content?
Well, I understand that YouTube and Google above it are trying to sweeten the pot for some of their biggest stars and give them reasons to stay. There's been a bit of a bidding war. This is a little bit like back in the day before you guys were born, when the NBA and the ABA were all trying to get the best stars, the NFL and the AFL, 1,000 years ago in the early sports days. There's a bidding war for some of the talent. And, what are you providing? What are the opportunities? This is a new world, and it is, again, a slightly different business. I mean, the business model is different than what YouTube is doing. YouTube is trying to offer a variety of value adds to its biggest stars, though. It's trying to keep some of these folks. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, Vessel just launched today. It only came out of complete stealth mode about 8-9 months ago, and they were sort of denying their existence even then until about November. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Hey, David, two-part question for you. If I'm a content creator, number one, am I free to go create content on Vessel from day one? Can anyone create content there? And then part two of the question is, those existing YouTube content creators, do they have to make a choice? Do they have to jump to Vessel and leave YouTube, or can they do both?
They can do, well, second part first. They can do both. So again, even the content that's behind the paywall, they have a choice to, it has to be exclusive on Vessel for 72 hours. They can set it to as much as 2 weeks, and then they can put it anywhere they want, including YouTube. And I think a lot of them will take that. Now, some of these guys, what I think they're doing is they're already creating multiple channels for their work. So maybe they have a vlog, and then they also have something in a particular subject area that they have great interest in. Maybe they take the content from one of those channels and put that on here and make that exclusive for the 3 days. And then people who are not as big of fans, aren't so desperate to see it as soon as it comes out, will see it later. You'll see it a week later, 3 days later, whatever it ends up being. Now, no, not just anybody on the YouTube universe gets to get onto here. This is trying to be sort of the best of online video, and online video is not just YouTube anymore. I mean, I think that's really important to keep in mind. And again, we've got big networks involved. We've got major sports leagues like the NBA and the NHL with footage and highlights from their stuff. We've got some serious big boy content creators, traditional media companies also playing in this space. So they want to have it, and they've also got a big deals with Vivo, with Universal Music Group, with Warner Brothers Music Group. So they've got a lot of music video content, and that's really great online. It's one of the biggest things on YouTube. So, but again, you make it exclusive for a little while. People might be willing to pay a little bit. The ad rates are much higher than they are. The percentage of ad revenue coming back to the and subscription revenue coming back to the providers is much higher. But you've also got to bring it. You've got to bring an audience, basically.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tough sell, I think, because a lot of this content that they have on the list here, which looks impressive. You see names like Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and so on, but they're going to be showing clips. These are not rare. You can find these essentially advertisements for the network TV shows all over the internet. And even the sports stuff, sports could be really compelling content, but it's going to be game recaps, little clips, stuff like that. Again, this is promotional material. This isn't content per se. This is promoting other content. I
just want to interject because
Sure.
I actually don't completely agree with you. The Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon stuff was actually on the free side because they recognize it, as Jason put it to me yesterday. And when I asked him exactly this, he said, well, you can make a case for that. Absolutely, because it's sort of second window already for the network, right? They put it up on their show, and now they're putting it up on the web. Within the first day. And that stuff is proven, particularly for Jimmy Fallon. I mean, he is just a social media monster, transformed late night TV. So his content has a lot of legs on it. But, the bigger point here is that what you're talking about, this is not content for sitting in front of a TV and only watching what's on the TV. This is for mobile media consumption. So that means you do just want the bits and pieces, the short bites, the 2 minutes that's really great that you can watch by somebody you really care about, a brand that you really are invested in. It's not, I'm going to sit there and watch an NHL game, from start to finish. I'm going to watch the 3 fantastic shots or the great stop by the goalie, or I'm going to watch the 3 dunks from the San Antonio Golden State game. So it's about trying to acknowledge a major shift in particularly the way that millennials consume content as a whole. And it's not going to be watching the whole show, even for these traditional media companies. And they're trying to figure out, I think, what their future looks like. And this is a place to do it.
I agree with you that millennials and everyone really wants to watch short content. The trouble is trying to charge money for a world in which we are overwhelmed with absolutely free video of every description.
Mike, I'm just going to tell you, we used to say no one's going to pay for water. We used to say no one's going to pay for TV. And then we had cable TV, and they do. So why is this different 40 years later or 50 years after the rise of cable TV? I don't think it is. It's just that it's a new thing. And you'll be buying your bottled Vessel videos, no doubt, for your cell phone sooner than you think, probably, if it's good enough content.
Yeah, I'm sure they hope you're right, but I have doubts. I think that there's going to be we're right in the middle of an explosion of video content, and I think advertising-supported free content is really going to win the day in terms of the big numbers. But that's just me. We'll have you back on in a year, David, and we'll see how we did. David Bloom's at Deadline.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at David BLO. Well, I always mess up your Twitter handle. David, what is your Twitter handle?
It's David Bloom like a flower. Bloom
yeah, okay.
Like a flower. Real simple.
We gotta fix our my notes here. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
You bet. Glad to be on.
Twitter has quietly entered the venture capital world by investing in Cyanogen. Twitter Ventures, which doesn't even have a website yet, has been headed by former Twitter finance chief Mike Gupta for 9 months. Here we go. You know, all the big Silicon Valley companies want to do this, play in the venture game, and here they are investing in Cyanogen of all companies. Do you see any reason why they would want to invest in Cyanogen, Joe?
You know, the big question here is whether there can be an alternative path forward for Android, and that's what I think Twitter is trying to solve here, and perhaps get involved in, and have more say in terms of the actual user interface and the experience going forward. So yeah, I think there's something to be had here. I mean, the thing I would worry about, and the thing I don't know, is I wasn't able to determine the valuation that Twitter invested at here. So we know the dollar amount, but we don't know what the valuation is on the company at this point. And you do worry about valuations getting ahead of themselves in Silicon Valley right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in follow-up news, NASDAQ agreed today to help a startup power a marketplace for trading Bitcoin and other digital currencies. The startup is called Noble Markets, and they're going to use NASDAQ's Extreme Trading System. Yet another strike for the validation and mainstreaming of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, Joe. Very interesting development.
It is interesting. And the whole currency discussion, you know, since the birth of the web, everyone's been talking about what will the currency be online. And we saw so many startups in the late 1990s. And one of the things I've been watching the last few weeks is IBM is even trying to get into this game now and trying to define digital currencies going forward. So it's really interesting to see. And whether or not Bitcoin plays a role in that is... A year ago, I would have said Bitcoin is going to be the standard. Now I'm not so sure. Yeah,
that's a good point. Could be anything, but I think cryptocurrencies in general and digital currencies are definitely here to stay. And, you know, we'll see if they all survive, if some of them, if just one of them becomes the de facto digital standard. We'll see. I think it's anybody's game at this point. Well, in product update news, Amazon's Prime Music service has been upgraded on iPhones with a feature called Prime Stations, which are ad-free streaming music stations that offer unlimited song skips. Amazon also added personalized recommendations, which are songs chosen algorithmically based on past playing history and the user's thumbs up and thumbs down history. The feature had been available previously on Amazon Fire tablets and in Amazon's desktop app, so it's really not that surprising, but this is kind of, call it the Pandorification of all music services. Well, Microsoft launched Azure App Service today, which is a new cloud-based service that gives developers a single place for building mobile services and apps on Azure. Joe Panettieri, this is an example of Microsoft coming out with way too many options for developers and then rolling them all up into a single site. But this should be a popular option for whoever's developing on Azure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think increasingly from Microsoft, all roads do lead to Azure. You and I have discussed this a few times on the show, but if you look at the latest market research, Mike, the fastest growing big cloud provider in the public cloud space is now Microsoft. And it's not because they're a small play that's growing fast. They're actually a massive play that's growing fast, which is quite impressive at this point. They're trailing only Amazon Web Services at this point, but I think they're closing the gap rapidly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Well, in other product update news, Twitter is quietly rolling out to verified iOS users a feature called the Quality Filter, which adds algorithmic filtering to all notification options. Twitter is also reportedly testing auto-playing videos, a feature that would mirror the one on Facebook and which has sent Facebook video views through the roof. You know, Twitter's got that Facebook envy, Joe Panettieri, and little by little, they're just becoming Facebook with every annoying feature on Facebook, everything except all those users, actually.
Yeah, you know, I'm very curious about this quote-unquote quality filter, and you almost picture it in your mind. What if you and I and all users out there had our own dials to dial up or dial down the quality so that we could actually decide just how much filtered or unfiltered content we receive? I hope someone goes towards down that path, because particularly on LinkedIn right now, I'm getting so much unfiltered content. I find it annoying. But on the other hand, I just don't want an off switch that gets rid of it. So I hope someone gives me the dials and puts me in control rather than the algorithm people in the back end.
Of course, Google Plus has had that for a long time on a circle-by-circle basis. You can turn it up, turn it down, or whatever. You can't turn it off, and that always annoyed me. And that's one of the things I've always liked about Twitter is that, you know, sometimes I don't want algorithmic filtering. I don't want somebody's beliefs about what my relationships are, you know, get in the way of what's happening. For example, on Google Plus, it always bugged me. You have the family filter, and then you have this little dial that says, you know, filter it a lot, filter a little bit. Wait a minute. You're going to filter my family, you know, they probably won't, but, you know, my family, you know, has my wife and my 2 kids, okay? I don't want Google saying, well, you know what, this note from your son is not important to you. You're not going to, you know, we decided to filter it out because it's irrelevant BS. No, I want to have the control, at least on certain circles and on Facebook for certain friend groups or on Twitter for however they end up copying Facebook and having, you know, ways to group friends. I want the ability to say no filtering. You know, it's a pretty simple feature, but I don't think any of these companies are in the slightest a bit interested in providing that service. They all want to filter it because ultimately that's where the money is, because that enables them to figure out what you're caring about, what you're not caring about, and so on. So we'll see how they go with that. Well, in Hack Attack news, Amazon's Twitch got hacked yesterday. Twitch is a site for streaming mostly video game player videos. Amazon said yesterday that they reset all user passwords and that all accounts connected to Twitter and YouTube to promote live streams had been disconnected. User passwords, email addresses, usernames, home addresses, phone numbers, and dates of birth may have been accessed, and by may, that probably means have been. Amazon bought Twitch last year for $970 million. Well, in government crackdown news, Italian prosecutors are now finished with their investigation and allegations that Apple failed to pay nearly $1 billion in taxes. Prosecutors may now ask a judge for the case to be brought to trial. Apple claims that they paid all required taxes. Of course, they did it in Ireland, which the whole point of that is to pay less in taxes. Well, in just a sec, we got more news for you, but first, let me tell you about Shutterstock. Love Shutterstock because it's a place where they have millions and millions and dozens of millions of high-quality stock photos. They also have illustrations, vectors, and video clips. But if you have a website, or you're doing advertising, you're doing marketing, you have a blog, whatever it is you're doing, you want the best photography, and you'll find it on Shutterstock.com. And if you don't find it this week, you'll find it next week because they add 370,000 new images every single week. And, of course, it would be useless if you couldn't find this stuff, but it's easy to find because their search is really fantastic. You just put in whatever it is you're talking about. You want to illustrate. We're putting in red happy apple something here in the video version. And look, red happy apples. There they are by their thousands. And you can take your pick. And, of course, those illustrations are kind of come in just with the photographs and so on. If you're doing a project with other people in your company, you can share light boxes, so you can grab 30 pictures and send them over to somebody and say, hey, what do you think about these 30? And they can narrow them down to 10 and then send them to another person and so on. There are collaborative tools. And I think one of the coolest things that Shutterstock has is their iPad app, which it's an award-winning app, and it's just a beautiful site. It's really fun to just swipe through the pictures on this iPad app, select them, use the Lightbox feature, and so on. It's really, really great, and a perfect example. Every iPad app developer should sort of be inspired by this app because it's really, really beautiful and amazing to use. You can try Shutterstock today just by signing up for a free account. You don't need a credit card. Just start an account and begin using Shutterstock to help imagine what your next project could be like. And you can save your favorite images to a Lightbox to review later. Once you decide to buy, you can use offer code TNT0315 and new accounts will get 20% off image subscription packages. That's Shutterstock.com, and for 20% off image subscription packages on new accounts, use offer code TNT0315. And we thank Shutterstock for their support of Tech News Today. Well, in the Human Resources Department, Google has poached Morgan Stanley CFO Ruth Porat to become Google's Chief Financial Officer, replacing Patrick Pichette, who announced his retirement March 10th. Pwned has been called the most powerful woman on Wall Street, and she's been at Morgan Stanley since, are you sitting down for this, folks, 1987. What is that, the Reagan administration? She'll report directly to Google CEO Larry Page. This is quite a get, Joe Panettieri. She is a major player, and this is it wasn't cheap. I think this is their Angela Arendts, which of course is Apple's hire for hired the CEO of Burberry away, and now Angela Arendts makes, I don't know what, 6-7 times more than the CEO. This woman did not come cheap, and I'm sure they're paying her a lot of money.
Yeah, I think there's two key points here to keep in mind. Google, when it comes to managing Wall Street expectations, that's what I think one of the key points here is. Google has never apologized for investing in R&D, Mike. You and I always talk about some of the quote-unquote crazy projects that Google is up to. And sometimes Wall Street gets frustrated because Google is spending all this money on R&D for projects where Wall Street isn't sure if the projects are going to deliver, right? So the question is, as Google continues down that path and occasionally has an earnings hiccup, how do you set those expectations and or reset those expectations on Wall Street to gradually guide Wall Street down off the ledge so that the stock doesn't tank? And I think that's what this is all about in terms of hiring a CFO from Morgan Stanley with that type of experience, setting Wall Street expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. True. And, she considers herself returning back to California, even though she was born in England. She did live for quite a while in Palo Alto, California, and she worked at the she's been on the board at Harvard University and so on. So she's a real Silicon Valley person, even though she's always worked at Morgan Stanley on Wall Street. So anyway, we'll see how she does on the at Google in the Google culture of as depicted in the internship. See how she does there. Well, in news you can lose, a Belgian IT company called Underside will let you try on the Apple Watch using augmented reality. They provide you with a special wristband. It's basically a PDF, and you print it out with your printer, and you attach it to your wrist like a watch. Then you point your phone at the paper watch, and through the magic of augmented reality, the paper watch becomes an Apple Watch on screen. Tapping lets you cycle through different watch and watch bands combinations, and you can get the app on the Underside website. Let's take a look at this video. And there it is, the fake Apple Watch. Kind of see the paper one under it every once in a while. So this is the black band, black watch. There's the white one. There's a blue band. Very nice. Welcome to the future of trying stuff on. Very nice. And again, you can download that free and then try the app and see how the Apple Watch is going to look on yourself. What did you think about that, Joe? Is that does that give you a good sense, or does that look too cartoony to actually let you make a decision about whether you want an Apple Watch?
I don't know. I think if they can figure out how to simulate the weight, then I'd be interested.
Yeah, exactly. And if they could figure out how to simulate the expense, then that would be really nice. Maybe you could print a bunch of money and then you can burn it and get a sense of what it's like to buy an Apple Watch. Well, our TNT fan of the day is S. Mither in Durham, North Carolina, who posted this picture on Twitter. There we are. He's drinking a nice Chilean wine there and enjoying tech news today. Very nice. So many ways to watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. No, really, do this. I want you to do this. I want to eventually have a picture of every single viewer and listener on Twitter or Google+, Facebook, wherever. Just post it wherever you want to post it, even Instagram. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will definitely find it. Joe Panettieri, what the heck is happening after nines these days?
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, we stumbled onto an interesting story. And so about a week and a half ago, I heard from a company that was in quote-unquote stealth mode. They're this cloud storage startup. And I got to admit, Mike, when I heard cloud storage startup, I was like, oh, you know what? That's a saturated market. But then they happened to tell me in an offhand comment that Microsoft's chairman, John Thompson, is investing in them. And that really caught my interest. So we did an interview. It's going to premiere tonight at 9:01 p.m. Eastern in our podcast series. That's afternines.com/CEO. And it's all about this startup called Rubrik. Their CEO is going to be on the line with us at 9:01 p.m. Eastern, and he's going to be telling us why cloud backup is still a market that can be disrupted. And he talks a little bit about why John Thompson, who, as you may recall, before he was the chairman of Microsoft, he was the CEO of Symantec. This guy's getting behind it. The founder of Veritas is getting behind it. And a bunch of other executives are pumping in money. Very interesting discussion.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for co-anchoring today, and we'll all look for your stuff at After Nines.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
All right. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on Feedly, one of my favorite ways to subscribe, or you can choose another way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv or on the app or browser plugin of your choice. If you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, come on in and watch us as part of our studio audience. And you can follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. You can follow me personally on Vine. Just go to vine.co/mike.elgan and let us know what you think. Send us an email to tnt@twit.tv or just give us a call at 260-TNT-SHOW. Nobody's going to answer the phone. You can leave a message. Also, don't miss Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific every weeknight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. My name's Mike Elgan. Thank you for tuning in. Note that tomorrow we'll start the show at 9 a.m. Pacific, 1 hour early, so we can cover the Facebook F8 keynote at 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll see you then.